One of the things I love about coming back to Texas is that this is first off my wife's home, but it's also my adopted home. I came here in 1985 to go to school, and I also worked here. They say you can take the boy out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the boy, and that's how I feel. I've always felt like I've been an adopted Texan, and the chance to come back to Texas, to serve the people of Texas, and to serve the people of Texas State, it's a really exciting opportunity for both me and for my wife, Beth, who grew up in College Station. Well, one of the things I've always loved doing, I hope that I can continue to do that, is to engage with the students. I think it's really important to have an opportunity for them to understand what the president is, what the president does, but not just the students, also the faculty and the staff. I hope that there's opportunities for me to get out on the campus to engage with our students so they know who I am, and for our faculty and our staff to feel that they have a voice here as well. One of the reasons why I wanted to become a police officer as a young person was because I had a lot of experiences with them, not as a offender of the law, although that's another story for another time. But when I was a very young child, my parents were foster parents. And very commonly, late in the evening, a police officer would come knocking at the door and they asked my mom to take care of a young child who was in the middle of a, probably a pretty tragic part of their life. And they would then come in and spend some time with my parents, and I remember just looking up at these guys, and they were all guys back then, thinking that these were like supermen, and that they were the people who made young people safe, that created safety and created justice and fairness in the world. I really looked up to them, that profession, the idea of helping other people who are in the middle of probably the worst thing that ever happened to them in life. There's a police officer there to help them out. So for me, that was an ultimate goal, to put myself in a position to help other people who couldn't help themselves, to stand up for someone who couldn't stand up for themselves. I grew up in a little fishing village in northern Canada, and my parents adopted me at a very young age. They adopted all of us kids. So I grew up in a very mixed household with a lot of different brothers and sisters growing up. Went to a community college in Canada, then worked in prison for a while as a prison guard. And then the good fortune that I had was moving to Texas in 1985 to go to college. And when I was attending college, the intention was to go back and become a Royal Canadian Mounted Police officer. But I met a girl, and she was from Texas, and she didn't want to, marry a police officer and didn't want to move to Canada. And I just wanted to date her. I wasn't talking about marriage, but she was talking about, why would I date someone I wouldn't want to marry? She's a very practical person. So eventually, I convinced her that I wouldn't make her move to Canada and I wouldn't become a police officer. She would at least date me. And then that was the beginning of our relationships. One of the reasons I became a professor was because I really liked the idea of teaching. And if I have a chance to share with folks later on, I'll talk about the 5 people who changed my lives. And each one of those people was either a teacher or a professor. And there were people who stood in the gap when I needed someone to guide me or direct me. When I became an associate dean, I kept my teaching responsibilities. And then when I became a dean, I kept teaching. And then when I became a chancellor at my previous institution, I taught there as well. And I specifically love teaching freshmen because I think that transition from high school to college is the most interesting time in anyone's life. And I think you can learn a lot about sociology, which is what I teach, Introduction to Sociology. You can learn a lot about sociology through the lens of becoming a new college student. You learn about diversity, you learn about different people, you learn about how the world works and how systems operate in a social system. It'll take me a while to understand the rhythm of being a president at Texas State University, but my goal will someday to be in a classroom teaching Introduction to Sociology to incoming freshmen, because that's really where my passion lies. I was the first person I ever knew that went to college. Now, I know I'm crazy for saying that because I know my teachers must have gone to college, but going to college was not, like, none of my parents' friends had gone to college. My mom went to grade 9, my dad had a grade 12 diploma. College was just not even in the works for me, and so first one to go to community college, the first one to get a 4-year degree, and certainly the first one to get an advanced degree. Being a first-generation college student, I really empathize with the challenge. It's not just first-generation college students, because I think all students face this challenge. It's the idea that I don't belong here, and the idea that everyone gets it and I'm the only one who doesn't. I think when you go to college, there's a sense that everyone's got it figured out and I don't. And I don't know where to go for help. And for me, by accident, I discovered that there were faculty members and staff members as well whose entire careers were dedicated to helping people like me. It took me a while to figure that out, that I could go to a faculty member or to a trusted advisor, and they would help me figure things out. That, you know, we use a lot of shorthand at universities, and we expect people to sort of understand things, but I never heard of the term syllabus before, and I never understood the concept of going to the bookstore and buying a book. I didn't know you had to buy books, because in high school they'd all been provided for me. I certainly had no money, and so I had no resources. I didn't understand about scholarships and how that worked. It wasn't until much later in life when I went back to college, actually, when I learned more about how those people who work at the university can help me out a lot. So the biggest piece of advice I would give folks is, first off, nobody else has a figure. Everyone's as nervous as you are. Everyone's faking it right now. They're just faking it better than you are. And second, there's a lot of help on our campus. Faculty, staff, your seniors in your discipline, your peers that have gone through where you are now. If you're a first year freshman, there's a senior in your discipline that probably could help you out if you just reach out and ask them as well. In fact, they may be able to help you more than the faculty or staff advisors, because they've been through it from your perspective. And so you're not alone. There's a lot of help out there, and you're here because we selected you. We brought you here because we knew you could be successful. Don't think you're not worthy of it. To be honest, I didn't get a lot of advice at the beginning. I had to figure things out on my own. I remember getting my first schedule for classes, and the schedule said MWF 9 to 10. I figured out Monday, Wednesday, Friday must be MWF. But then it said TR 11 to 12:15, and I couldn't figure out what TR meant, because I really didn't know. So I thought it must be Tuesday. And so I went to class on Tuesday, but I didn't go to class on Thursday because I didn't know there was class on Thursday. And that's one of the concerns I have is, again, we use a lot of shorthand here. We assume everyone understands things, but I literally didn't know what TR stood for. My roommate actually said, you know, you seem confused by things. And I said, I am confused. You should go talk to your advisor. Your advisor can help you out. That was the best advice I got, was to go talk to my advisor. I didn't even know what an advisor was. I went and talked to Dr. Lovelace, and she walked me through the schedule, walked me through what it was like to be a student. And she said, I'm your advisor. If you ever need help with anything, you come talk to me. And Canadians can be very literal, and I thought she really meant anything. So if I had girlfriend problems, I'd go talk to Dr. Lovelace. If I wasn't sure, I didn't know what chicken fried steak was. And so I went to a restaurant and someone asked me about it. I said, I'm not sure I want to eat that. I had to ask her what is it steak? Is it chicken? I'm not sure what's going on here. She was my advisor academically, but also my life advisor. And so the best advice I ever got was to go check in with my advisor. And she, again, was one of those people that changed my life forever. One of the things that I love about Texas State, as I learn more and more about it, is the diversity of the campus. It's the most diverse university in the state of Texas, and it's really exciting to me to come to a campus like that because it really reflects the demographics of the entire state. And I think that diversity is something that can really strengthen a university and can strengthen the experience of students who come in, and maybe they're coming from a town that isn't very diverse. Now they're sitting in a classroom that's way more diverse. Maybe their roommate comes from a totally different experience than they had. Those experiences I had as a student when I came to Texas, both of my roommates were from cultures that I knew nothing about before I moved here. And I learned so much by that, and I grew because of that. And so I think that having a diverse student body and faculty and staff makes for a stronger university, and also I think reflects something special about Texas State, because it's the Texas State University and it reflects Texas so well. It's not a monolith, it's actually a mosaic of wonderful cultures who are coming together and not amalgamating and all become the same, but learning from each other as well. And I think that's an important opportunity that a lot of campuses don't have, and I'm really excited about having that experience at Texas State. One of the things that I think is interesting about a university is that most people get into this job because they're interested in the whole idea of the learning process. But over time, I think it's really easy to kind of get bogged down in the day-to-day routine about what you're doing, and you start to focus so much on the small things you're doing and forget the bigger picture about how other people might need your help. I think about this in a metaphor, perhaps, about when you go to some big stores and you're trying to find something, and you might go up to a clerk who works there and says, hey, where's the hammer? And they say, well, the hammer's down there. It's, either aisle 17 or 18, and you know, it's only left or right. You'll figure it out when you get down there. And I feel sometimes that a university that can be too impersonal can feel like that to a student who's being given general directions but not the guidance. But you go to some places, you go and ask, where's the hammer? They'll say, hey, let me take you. No, I'm fine, I can find, no, let me take you there. And they'll take you down where the hammer section is, and then while you're there, say, hey, there's the blue handled one, there's a red handled one, there's a wooden handled one, and this works really well for this kind of thing, and this one works well for this kind of job. And that's what I think, when a university is working on all cylinders, students feel like they can go to someone who's going to show them where the hammers are and show them the kinds of hammers that will work best in the right situation. One of the things that I'm hoping that I'm able to do at Texas State University is to make sure that every voice feels heard, whether faculty member, staff member, or student, that they feel like they are part of the future, not just the present or the past, but the future of Texas State, and that we can create together this culture of belonging where people feel like this is my university, and when I leave, that was my university, it still is my university, that I belonged there, I felt like I was valued and that I was important and that people valued my being. And so this idea of the culture of belonging is super important to me.